And so there were probably, I'd say like 10 of us that were all like holding each other's shoulders or holding hands just in this straight line across the pier. It's 4 p.m. I'm so surprised like no one called cops because it's just a bunch of people screaming on the end of the pier. But I hope what they saw as they walked by was like, oh, those people are really going through it, but they're going through it together. And we like tilted our heads back and then just released into the water all of the pain and the anguish and the misery of having to live in a world where she doesn't exist anymore. And we actually did two rounds of them. And something that I loved about that day and that experience was my friends, especially the quiet ones, coming up to me and saying, I didn't know I needed that. Yeah. And also just gesturing around to the whole group and saying, I didn't know I needed this either. Because I know for a fact I'm not the only one who was taught you need to grieve alone. And being able to grieve together, even for that one day, I mean, obviously it's still something I carry so closely with me.
Hello, my grieving friend. It's Lisa. Whether you're a longtime listener or you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to Grief is a Sneaky Bitch podcast. I'm so glad you're here. By now, you likely know I'm passionate about exploring the nature of grief. As a narrative therapy trained social worker, a grief activist, and a widow, I'm dedicated to helping us learn to be in relationship with our grief instead of running from it. In our modern culture, we've pushed grieving into the shadows, something to be experienced privately, causing us to suffer unnecessarily and in isolation. Grief is our human inheritance. It offers us medicine if we tend to it as a community. So together with my extraordinary guests, and this season answering your questions too, we're changing the narratives of grief, one conversation at a time. She's back. Yes, my friends, I'm welcoming back another former guest to the show. This time it's grief coach, author, and podcast host, Shelby Forsythia. Now, she's also showing up today in our conversation as someone who's experienced profound loss herself, with the death of her mom from breast cancer when she was just a young adult, to a more recent loss, the death of her best friend, Tammy, who died unexpectedly of COVID in 2022. Now, earlier this year, I was so honored to read an advanced copy of her brand new book out March 31st. It's called, Of Course, I'm Here Right Now. 3 actually helpful things to say to someone grieving. If you're a listener to this show, then you know 100% of us will be grievers and grief supporters. Yet so often we rely on outdated ideas of grief and, frankly, harmful platitudes. In Shelby's book and in this gorgeous conversation, we explore 3 unspoken stories grieving people tell themselves, 3 phrases that offer meaningful support without trying to fix or diminish the griever's lived experience, and how these apply no matter the type of loss, from the big 3 Ds, death, divorce, diagnosis, to the everyday disappointments and frustrations we experience. Get ready to feel seen, to feel understood, and to learn, because Shelby offers it all. Welcome back to Grief is a Sneaky Bitch podcast, Shelby. I am so excited to have you here, y'all. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the book. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm trying not to scream into the mic because I don't want to put people off right away, but it is so beautiful. I've not got my author copy of the book yet, but Lisa got hers today. And I'm joking that this is baby's first hardcover. So I've never had a book in hardcover before. And it's just so beautiful to see it.
It's so absolutely gorgeous physically, but it's also stunning. Listeners heard at the top of the show that, this is your second time on the show. So if you haven't listened to our previous conversation, you can do that after today. But that I was one of the very lucky people who got to read an early copy of your book. And am included in support in your book. So just been thrilled since that day for us to get to the recording date so we can have this conversation. We are going to dive into, of course, I'm here right now, 3 actually helpful things to say to someone grieving. So if you're listening today as a griever, remember, you'll are or will be a grief supporter. If you are a grief supporter, remember that you are or will be a griever. And so this is a lesson, this is a book for all of us, for all time. So I can't wait to dive into the wisdom, honestly, that you offered.
Yes,
I,
I'm
I
ready.
thought I thought since this is your second time being on the show, listeners know, you know this too, my friend, that I'm really trying to have us unpack the harmful grief beliefs that most of us carry in our lives that cause us to suffer unnecessarily in our grief. And as you really point out in your book, cause us to say or hurt harmful things or cause others to suffer unnecessarily because of the harmful grief beliefs we might hold.
Hmm.
Um, I'm curious if you are willing, usually I ask people to sort of excavate back to an early childhood loss and what that taught you about what grief should or shouldn't be and how you think that really is real or not. But I know that you've in recent years lost a very close friend,
Yeah.
um, the death of your beautiful friend. And I'd love for you to remind us of her name. But I
Yeah.
wonder if you think about how you were able to approach this loss differently, knowing what you know now as a grief educator, writer, thinker, etc., versus how you might have approached that loss in that early version of you before you knew, uh, I'm going to use this in air quotes, better, before you knew.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little,
Absolutely.
well, share her if you want, but also just what you think you allowed yourself to do differently this time?
Yeah, my mom's death in 2013, I will always and forever refer to it as the first and the worst. And I
Yeah.
think that I know that only we can rank our own losses. And so for me,
Yeah.
this is my first and my worst. Right now, that could certainly change in the future. I hope it doesn't. Um, but after her death, I definitely had these societal, cultural, learned beliefs of if you're going to grieve, grieve alone, and that grief is not really a thing that's done with others. I remember when my grandfather died, I was in fifth grade, my mom's dad, and she shut herself in her bedroom to cry. And it was the first time I ever learned is like, oh, if you're going to grieve, you need to grieve
Yeah.
alone. And that was the lesson that I took away and the lesson that I had after my mother's death. And I had like a professor, a random family member, like there were a few people who insisted on staying in my life after my mother's death, sort of over the long term. But for the most part, all of the processing I did related to her death was undertaken by myself. By contrast, my best friend Tammy died in 2022 from COVID very unexpectedly. My mom's death was unexpected. My best friend's death was also unexpected. And I was a grief coach of 7 or 8 years by then. And so there was kind of this weird pressure. And I imagine you can resonate with this too of
Mm.
like, I'm the person who talks about grief, but now I'm also freshly grieving. And there's this thing of like, I bet you're really good at grief. And I was like, I don't know that I'm good at it. I just know I just have words for it and tools for
Yeah.
it and structures and all this other stuff. But the thing that changed about her death that was not true with my mom's is that I insisted upon grieving together. And this wasn't
Mm.
me like forcing people to grieve
Yeah.
alongside me. It was just me intentionally creating more invitations for people to show up and grieve together if that was a thing that they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I learned in my mother's death that I really love expressing grief by yelling, by screaming, instead of by like weeping. I'm not a big like go to movies and like make yourself cry kind of person. I'm more like if something terrible happens, I'm like, if I don't get this out of my body, I might explode. And so about 2 or 3 days after my friend Tammy died, all of our mutual friends like all got together on a beach in Chicago and walked out to the pier. And I was like, this is going to feel really weird, but we'll like share memories of her and talk about what we remember about her. But then I want us to all hold hands and like yell our loudest possible yell into the water. And everybody's like, I'm game, let's go. And so there
Yeah.
were probably, I'd say like 10 of us that were all like holding each other's shoulders or holding hands just in the straight line across the pier. It's 4 in the afternoon. I'm so surprised like no one called the cops because it's just a bunch of people screaming on the end of the pier. But I hope what they saw as they walked by was like, "Oh, those people are really going through it, but they're going through it together." And we, like, tilted our heads back and then just released into the water all of the pain and the
Yeah.
anguish and the the misery of having to live in a world where she doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And we actually did two rounds of them, and something that I loved about that day and that experience was my friends, especially the quiet ones, coming up to me and saying, "I didn't know I needed that."
Yeah.
And also just gesturing around to the whole group and saying, "I didn't know I needed this either." Because I know for a fact I'm not the only one who was taught you need to grieve alone.
No.
And being able to grieve together, even for that one day, I mean, obviously, it's still something I carry so closely with me. And then there were other opportunities down the road on like the first year of her death anniversary and years down the road where I've grieved together, whether it's with my wife who knew my best friend in life or with other friends who live nearby, or all of us flying in to get together to like essentially do a ribbon cutting on the tree we had planted for her. But they've been these opportunities where over and over again, I keep issuing the invite to come together, come together, come together. And it has made the grief experience not better or softer, because I don't know that it ever gets better or softer,
Mm-mm.
but just different. I'm not, I know for a fact that I'm not carrying it all by myself. And I did not know that to be true when my mom
Yeah.
died.
Yeah. Oh, Shelby, that's so um, beautiful. First, thanks for welcoming Tammy into the room. And um, so you are not alone in feeling that it is yours to carry alone. I think,
Hmm.
we share this passion. You talk about this in the book, of course, mine book as well, but we've had this conversation before about these harmful myths that make this, yes, extraordinarily and naturally difficult, painful experience of grieving unnecessarily more difficult
Yeah,
because we are tricked into believing that it is ours alone to carry.
right. Yes.
And so I love that you were in a place this time around where you could really call on the wisdom that you knew to build community, to allow, and then by invitation. See, this is the power of modeling. This is the power of even this conversation, this podcast. You host your own gorgeous podcast, which I've been lucky enough to be a guest on, which was not only cathartic or meaningful to you and to the people that knew Tammy that day, to gather in community and to scream into the sand. I'm already um, cooking up a screaming into the ocean idea here in San Diego. So if
I love it.
listeners, you're in San Diego, let's do it. Um, and to what you just said, somebody who was there who maybe is now has some permission in their own life because you've helped them get in touch with the fact that they needed community and that they needed to use the somatic release of screaming. So
Mhm.
every time each of us is brave enough to stand up for what we need in our grief, to exercise it, to invite people to be a part of it and witness, it's such a generous act. Does that resonate for you too?
Yeah, well, and I like that you use that word, and I know that for the most part, I go into this entirely selfishly. I'm like, "I gotta
Yes.
get this grief out of me or I will
Yeah,
explode." But
exactly.
what ends up happening is the ripple effect of it, and what's very funny now, and I don't know if this is true for you either, but now I'm known as the girl who screams
Yes.
as a form of grief support, and what's
Yeah.
funny is that, in the wake of COVID and lockdowns and just, like, the political climate being what it is now, there have been groups popping up in the United States, but also in other countries called scream clubs, and they
Yes.
basically meet like once a week on a Friday morning to just like yell into the ocean or yell into the lake
Yeah.
or yell over a cliff or a pier or something like that. And of course, I've never been able to attend any of these, but all my friends will send me links to them now and be like, look how cool this is. Look how cool that is. And it has just become embedded in like the identity of who I am. And so
Yeah.
it's not just something. When my mom died, it was a shame. I've never talked about this in a podcast before, but when my mom died, it was a shameful thing that I did alone in the garage of her house as she was dying. And my dad and my sister, who also shared the house with me, never acknowledged that I was like going into the garage every night to scream because I was
Yeah.
suffering that she was dying.
Mhm.
Um, and they never said anything about it. And that literally did a 180 with my
Yeah.
best friend's death. Part of that was me feeling comfortable enough to grieve very out loud in front of other
Yeah.
people. But part of that too was like, I insist I will not do this alone.
Yeah.
And I issue the invitation to come with me. I did not make anyone do this, but it was very much like I I will not survive grief if I have to do it like that again. So I'm
Yeah.
going to do it this other way that I know or suspect is more helpful. And I'm very, very glad that it was. And then, of course, to your point, it just seems it wasn't just helpful for me, it was helpful for
Yeah.
everyone else who was there. But then the other people who didn't even know Dammy, who
Yeah.
probably are just like running by or biking by or walking their dog on the
Yeah.
Chicago lakefront trail, which is where it was
Yeah.
happening. It was like 13 miles of very public access beach.
Yeah.
I wish I could go around with a mic and interview anyone who was there that day. I
I
would have
know.
no way of knowing. But what did you think? What were you feeling? What did you feel
Yeah.
permission to do as a result of that? Would be such a cool question to ask.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That permission giving is so incredible. And it came with a very implicit, it wasn't like an explicit invitation to all those people. This is why I'm always droning on this show about the implicit and explicit messages that we get about grief, because they have power,
Hmm.
sometimes to influence in a positive way and sometimes to influence in a harmful way. And I just want to like not um, pass over what you just shared there about the fact that you went into the garage to scream your grief, your anticipatory grief, to scream your pain. And the fact that your sister and your dad never brought it up once was its own implicit message that had power. And that power was keep it to yourself.
Hmm.
We don't want to talk about this. And so I just, as painful as an example as that is, want to like give young Shelby a big hug right now for having to go through that alone, but also just turn to the listeners and say, like, remember, we learn things through those putting the photograph away, for not mentioning the scream. It's also
Hmm.
all these implicit non-action gestures that we make that
Yes.
can have a kind of chilling effect on the griever, which is why I love your book so much, because it's just such a gentle invitation to bring it all to the fore. Like,
Hmm.
let's be uncomfortable, but talk about it. Let's witness it. Let's name it. Let's not let it be. And even the implicit actions that we take, let those implicit actions show care, belonging,
Yep.
welcoming, understanding, not denying, disenfranchising, alienating. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful way to put it.
Oh, well, thank you. Um, so I want to dig into many of the things in this book. I got to read an early copy, but I literally just went to the PO box today. So I usually, these things are flagged by 100, but I've only gotten in 2 flags because I literally just picked it up. But my digital copy is flagged, but not very interesting. You can't see on camera. Um, but I want to dig into it, and I think since we were just talking about the implicit messages that can cause harm to a griever. And when I say harm, by the way, I want to name it's, isolation, it's self-judgment, it's maybe then choosing not to seek care. Like there's a real layering of the harm. But when you think about, and we've talked about this before, and I have a line of empathy cards that rails against it. But when you think about the explicit messages that can cause the most harm, you talked about, doing that, this idea that we need to do it alone. But when you think about the old, dare I say, time heals all wounds,
Hmm.
garbage, what are the common platitudes that you touch on that feel like they backfire the most? Or today, what's coming up for you in terms of,
Oh,
because there's a
sure.
lot, like the laundry list is
Yeah.
is long.
Yeah. The one that doesn't get mentioned, I think, enough, but just exists spoken and spoken, is you just need to get over it, or
Yeah,
you just need to find closure,
yeah.
especially in like woo woo health wellness world
Uh-huh.
of like, there are ways to forgive and forget and release yourself from all your attachments and blah, blah, blah. There's this sense that, like, if you could just be done grieving,
Yes.
then you would be a better person. It's almost
Yeah.
like a self-enlightenment exercise.
Yes.
And if for some reason you're not done grieving, then there must be something wrong with you, or you must be stuck or hung up on something, or you must need to be cleansed of something, or you must need to,
Yeah.
pay millions of dollars to a therapist or
Yeah.
somebody else or cult to
Yeah.
get it out of you. But I think this pervasive sense of if you are grieving, then you are broken. even though that's not the language. The language is, you need to
Yeah.
get over it. I can't believe you're still grieving. I can't believe you're still torn up about it, or you're still angry, or you need to find closure. All of those are different ways of saying that
Yes.
it is
Yeah.
wrong to be grieving. You are broken or wrong or bad for grieving. That's the
Yeah.
most loud and annoying one, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And it's the most pervasive. And I think it's also sneaky too, in a way, because I mean, all platitudes come off with the kind of like, I'm just trying to help, like surface level thing, but the back end is really harmful. Um, I think those in that genre that you were just talking about, the like, you can get to a higher place and be a better self if you just forgive and forget or find
Like a
closure and move on.
griefless existence. I'm like,
Like a
who's
griefless
saying
existence
this? Who's telling
is
this? What's
it's
going
so
on?
harmful because it's couched
Yeah.
in your value as a human being and your, like, are you good enough? Are you, as you said, kind of have you advanced to some higher level being, which also usually comes with sign up for my, whatever it is, fill in the blank,
Hmm.
my course, my thing. Um, and to what you just said, the to have a griefless life is to have an emotionless life. I mean, this talk I gave centering aliveness in a world full of loss, it's like if you shut off your access to your grief, first of all, it doesn't go away. You and I both know that. It
Hmm.
just comes out sideways in really ugly ways, physically, psychologically, emotionally, sometimes verbally. Um, but also, then where's your access to awe and delight and wonder?
Hmm.
Yeah, you don't get to have
Hmm.
one without the other. So, I know you and I also share the I can't imagine,
Oh, yeah, the
frustration with the
hatred.
I can't
I can't
imagine.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one was actually taught to me by grievers themselves. I was kind of neutral about that. I
Yeah.
didn't like
Okay.
it, but I was kind of neutral about the phrase until I
Yeah.
started working with people, and they were like, I can't imagine. And my response to that was, tell me more. Like, tell me why.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
said, I hate it for two reasons. They say, I can't imagine. And the one direction of it is, I really cannot fathom what you're going through.
Yeah.
The other direction is, I can imagine, I just don't want to because your life sounds like
Yes.
hell.
Yeah.
And like, neither of those feel good to receive. And I'm like, oh, I hear both of those very clearly. And you're correct. So yeah, I can't imagine, or I can't fathom
Yes.
are
Yeah.
two that I've removed entirely from
Yeah.
my vocabulary. And I actually challenge comforters and supporters instead to say things like, I can imagine this is really hard for you, or
Yes.
I can fathom that it feels really hard to get through the day right now,
Yeah.
or I can see how this is really difficult for you, or I can see how this has changed every aspect of your life. Like, what can you
Yeah.
imagine? If you can't
Yeah.
imagine living through the loss, don't say that out loud.
Exactly.
Don't do that.
Please
But
don't.
acknowledge what you can see. And
Yes.
even that is a part of
Yeah.
offering verbal support at grief.
Yes, so important. I've received that from several people. And I think the thing I would add is it's also grieving is so isolating as we've been talking about it. It's sort of inherently isolating because even though people can come around, you're the person who's actually having to do the grieving yourself. And when someone says to you, which somebody has said to me that when my husband died, a fellow friend whose husband was very healthy and alive said, I can't imagine. And what that tells me is you are separate from me.
Mhm.
You are like an alien. I don't understand you. Sort of like you're outside of the community of belonging,
Yep.
which is exactly the sort of horrible thing that you can say to somebody who's desperately, as we've been talking about, needing community. I do want to just like pause again and turn out to the audience and say, if we bring up phrases that you've said, welcome to the human community. We've
Mhm.
all said the hurtful platitude thing because we've lived in a pretty grief illiterate culture. So please don't let your having said this, I mean, take a moment. If you are still friends with that person or know that person, you might say, I've learned something since I said that thing to you and I want to make amends.
Mhm.
But don't let it pull you down. Let this be like an invitation to um, move forward. It's interesting. I wrote a poem earlier this year. I might narrate it for our listeners today called Call and Response. And it was about uh, from the point of view of a griever, speaking back to all the harmful things that people say,
Mm-hmm.
um, with good intention, by the way. Most people are saying
Yep.
these things with good. Call and Response, a poem by Lisa Keefauver. Thank you. It's okay. I responded instinctively from the voice of my ancestors when you called me, inspired by the practices of your ancestors, and offered me your thoughtless, I'm so sorry. Call in response. I responded, I'm fine, to your pensive and begging me with your pained eyes and tilted head to keep the truest answer to your question, how are you? All to myself. Call in response. Denying the truth that someday you too will know devastating loss. I gritted my teeth, sent daggers with my eyes, exhaled audibly and with force when you uttered, I can't even imagine. Oh, how I wanted to shut you up by losing my own voice, yelling, yes, you can. You just don't want to, but I don't have a choice. I imagined shoving that response down your throat, but instead, I shoved it down my own and let you breathe freely. Call and response. Under the unforgiving lights of the ICU, squaring up your gaze to mine, you offered, don't worry, he'll be in a better place soon. And I wonder to this day how punching you in the face wasn't the response I chose. Call and response. So stunned by, don't worry, you're young, you'll find love again, when you paid me a call at his memorial service. My response was simply to turn on my heels and walk away, remembering my Midwestern sensibilities and the adage, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. Call in response. It was a sunny Tuesday afternoon when you caught a glimpse of my life as a young widow and only parent, your whisper dripping with pity, though you thought it to be full of praise, when you said, you're so strong, I don't know how you do it. When confronted with one too many grief platitudes, I became unwilling to hold it in any longer, and that is the day the dam of polite call and response broke. The flood of expletives came rushing out, no longer judicious, my use of swearing as a form of processing, protesting, making meaning, communicating my pain became a part of my everyday vernacular. Call and response, call and response, call and response. I don't have the energy for those old ways of call and response. The ones where I'm expected to meet you where you're at or when you need. No, I need you to meet me where I'm at, wherever that is. I'm not sure most days, and whenever I need, though I can't predict when. There's nothing I can say except this is fucking bullshit and it sucks so much and I love you are the truest things you can say when you call on me. And without expecting a polite response or any at all for that matter, still, you must keep calling me. Before we get to, of course, I'm here right now, I want to get to this part in your book where you talk about the 3 stories.
Yep. If you weren't
Because
going to start there, I was going to start there.
I know. Okay, good. You talk about the stories. I think they are, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm alone. This is how it's like, it's forever, and I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about the 3 stories that many, if not all of us grievers grapple with at some point early in our grief and what we need to know about those stories.
Yeah. I mean, to offer a gentle correction, this isn't even early in grief. These
Well,
people
whenever,
can
yeah.
tell themselves
But I
these
mean, it
stories like
starts from the
all throughout.
beginning. I
Yeah.
would say it starts from the beginning.
Yes. A
Yeah.
million. And I think they're, and I talk about a lot in the book about how they're informed by the things society says, the implicit and the explicit of, I can't believe you're still grieving, or you just need to get over it, or be strong for your family. Those all have hidden messages underneath them. But I have learned in 10 years of working with grieving people that over and over and over again, grieving people, including myself after my mom died, like orbit around the same 3 stories. It's almost like they're on this rotating lazy Susan, and it's like, well, which story are you telling yourself today? Or sometimes it's a combination of the
I was
2.
gonna say, sometimes
Yeah,
I have managed
or
to weave
3.
all 3 stories. Thank you very
Sometimes you're
much.
really good at it. And it's all 3 stories all at one time, but yes, they are I'm crazy.
Yeah,
Variations of that could be no one gets how I feel. If
yeah,
people knew what I was really feeling, they would commit me, which is definitely one that I thought after my mom's
yeah,
death. I'm too much for other people to handle, or I am going out of my mind is like another
yeah,
word that people use to describe that. I'm alone is everyone has forgotten me or no one remembers my loss. Those are ways of feeling alone. One that I've heard, especially during COVID, was I'm in a house full of people, but no one understands me or my grief. No one is acknowledging that grief is also in the room. So there's a
yeah,
kind of there can be physical aloneness if I'm literally alone in a house by
yes,
myself, but then there's like a mental, emotional, or even spiritual loneliness
yeah,
of like I'm in a room full of people but no one understands, or I have been abandoned by God or the universe or the sense of stability that I used to know that as a form of I'm alone. And then the third one, my life is going to be like this forever, is not necessarily one that society puts on top of us, but it's one that grievers sort of automatically jump to conclusions about, especially in the case of major loss, death, divorce, and diagnosis. I call it the 3 Ds, that really change your life because if the death is permanent, if the divorce
yeah,
is permanent, if the
yeah,
diagnosis is permanent, how I feel about it must be permanent too. And so my life, therefore, is going to look exactly this way because the loss will always be true forever and ever and ever. Amen.
yeah,
And it
yeah,
makes I call it in the book the logic of plausible permanence. Well, I'm like, it's plausible. I'm going to feel this way forever. Why
yeah,
not? Because this is how it appears to be. So yeah,
yeah,
that I
yeah,
refer to it as like the record that's constantly playing on the inside of grievers' heads, even if they never tell you what story they're telling themselves out loud. It's
yes,
crazy alone forever, crazy alone forever, crazy alone
yeah,
forever, just like on repeat in their heads. And any of
yeah.
these phrases speaks to one of the 3.
When I read that, I was like, you really nailed, I think, this sort of inner narration that
Hmm.
every griever I've ever worked with has experienced. Certainly, I've experienced in various losses that I've faced. And to your point, like if you're listening right now and you never put words to it, but you are feeling a kind of way hearing Shelby say this, I just want to like pause, invite you to pause, like place your hand over your heart and just offer some gentle care because this is a really profound awareness. And even though it might feel hard to hold right now, the beauty of interrogating a story is remembering that it's just a story,
Hmm.
right?
Well,
And
and I'll
that
say too. Oh, go ahead.
stories allow us to do something about them. Yeah, say more.
Yeah. Well, I'll say too, and I've not shared this anywhere about the book before, but I think a lot of people know that they feel sad or that they feel
Yeah,
bad, but they don't know what's underneath that. And
yeah,
sometimes asking yourself, well, do I feel crazy and misunderstood? Do I feel alone or isolated or cut off from support? Or do I feel like it's going to be like this forever? And even just identifying which of those is happening for you right now is a lot more clear than sad, bad,
yes,
whatever else might be swirling around. Um, yeah, and to your so much of your work, like wrapping language around it, can help you move through it.
yeah.
Just because it clarifies it, just that much more, just that little bit more.
Well, and that emotional granularity that you're talking about there by, like, interrogating the stories or noticing what is the story underneath the feeling, because
Hmm.
feelings, big feelings, especially if we haven't had a lot of practice learning how to be with big feelings, I always say big feelings can be real liars.
Hmm.
You know, they're just a bunch of effing liars and they can like get you wrapped up in a story and that emotional granularity or even asking yourself the question, what is underneath this? Is this about me feeling like I'm always going to be alone or that I'm always misunderstood, etc.? Not only allows you to ask yourself a question, is this true?
Hmm.
Is something else also true?
Yeah.
And if I feel this is true or this is how I'm feeling, then what steps might I take? Like getting to underneath then helps you figure out then what do I need to access or ask for in order to not be in this, yeah, state.
Hmm. In order to
Yeah.
move, break free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get unstuck.
And something you named there, Shelby, again, I want to highlight because I think it's so important. I think so many people, I count myself in this category, think about aloneness and feeling alone as something that happens when you are literally physically alone. And I think there's almost nothing more cognitively disorienting than feeling lonely in a room full of people.
Hmm. Yeah. It's something that I felt very, I'll use the word passionate. I was going to say
Yeah.
passionate's not the right word. That's the right word. About naming in, of course, I'm here right now because so many of my clients and students, they're like, I'm alone. And a lot of grief supporters' first reaction to that is, but you have this circle of friends, or but you
Yeah.
have a husband and a child, or but you have a dog, or you have all these coworkers, or you have a medical care team who's looking out for you. And so they
Yeah.
immediately invalidate a griever's lived reality by saying, well, no,
Yeah.
you're surrounded by people. I no comprendo. I don't understand.
Yeah.
And in the book, I lay out there's 4 different flavors of loneliness. The first one is physical loneliness, which is I'm literally alone, like geographically alone. I'm a dot on a map and there's no other dots around me. That's physical aloneness. But then mental aloneness is no
Yeah.
one else thinks like me, like no one else is following my train of logic or where I'm going with my thoughts. Emotional aloneness is no one else feels the same way I do about this
Yeah.
loss or this grief or this instance. And then spiritual aloneness is I have been abandoned by some kind of higher power.
Yeah.
This was definitely true for me and my mom that I grieved my sense of a right, wrong God. If you're good enough, good things will happen. If you're bad enough, bad things will happen. And I felt that I had just been like left out in the wilderness by
Yeah.
a God or a being that didn't want me to have a good life, to put it
Yeah.
nicely.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but there are different flavors of aloneness, and so if you have a grieving friend or someone coming to you saying, "I just feel so alone," and you're sitting across from them being like, "What am I, chopped liver?" Like, pause for a second and be like, they
Yeah.
may not be talking about physical or even relational aloneness. They might be talking about no one gets how I feel, or
Yes.
I have been abandoned by the universe, or no one's thinking the same way I am. So instead, you could say more on that, or I'm here for you. Say
Yeah.
more on that, and getting curious about like what flavor of loneliness are we talking about?
Yeah. I love that example so much. And just as you explain that, I just want to let listeners know I think your book does this so beautifully, where you sort of lay out a scenario, but then in really practical terms, you help people figure out how to show up differently so that they are of service to the griever in
Mhm,
their life. And that example was such a good one, including, by the way, I think it takes those of us, especially I think people who consider themselves empathetic, people, maybe you're a helper professionally in your, like for your day job. We get our egos in the way often and a little bruised when somebody says to us, you just don't understand, or I feel alone.
mhm,
And it's so important to maybe feel the sting of that for a moment and let yourself step aside and try to understand what kind of loneliness, what is their inner experience? How can just by the way, me being curious, not because I have a solution, but me being curious to know more about their inner
mhm.
experience, be the medicine that they might need in that moment?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. No, it's so gorgeous. Um, so this is, of course, now that we've talked about our 3 stories, this alone, this I'm crazy, this sort of is gonna feel like this forever, and, newsflash, you will not feel like anything forever ever because no emotional state lasts, period. Not the ones we wish would, by the way.
Mhm,
Um, not the joy, not the utter delight, not the extreme excitement, but neither the depth of our, grief and sorrow. Everything changes and metabolizes. So we know that we have these stories. You've given us some examples of like begin to give us some examples of how we might just hold deep compassion for the person who might be feeling these stories, even if we're thinking in our heads, wait a minute, I'm standing here. As you
mhm.
said, I'm what am I, chopped liver? Yeah. So what are the phrases that we need? This is really the core of your book. And let's just go through each of them. Like, what are some examples? Why do they have such a big impact in people's life? And, because we talked about this off air, the first one, which is the first part of your book title, of course,
Mhm,
I think has been in my life as a traditional therapist, in my work now as a grief guide, as a mom, as a friend, people have gotten the most out of and been surprised, I think, that they got the most out of course. So
Yes.
tell us about of course. Why does it make such an impact and where can we use it? Give us some
Yeah.
examples. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, of course, is the fan favorite because it also is really easy to apply to, how should I phrase this? Like the lesser griefs of the world.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
the bus splashed mud on my dress and now I'm upset because my dress looks horrendous at work. And so to say,
Yeah.
oh my God, of course you're upset. That was like your nicest dress. You just bought it, et cetera, et cetera. You're validating an
Yes.
emotion, but it can also apply to my parent just got rushed to the hospital and it's not looking good. Oh, well, of course you're not going to be able to focus at work.
Yeah.
Your parent just got rushed to the hospital. And so every part of course, and its variations, and I'll get into other examples of that, is a counterweight to the story that a grieving person might be telling myself is, I'm crazy. I'm
Yes.
crazy. No one gets how I feel. If they knew how I really felt, um, someone would come for me or I'd get in trouble. Or I am too much. I'm feeling too much for anyone or anything, and no one can possibly understand what it is that I'm going through. And so to have all this internal shame and judgment of, I'm crazy,
Yeah.
counterweighted by, well, of course, or that makes sense to me, or I can see how you got there, or logically I follow you, or that sounds normal, or even just, this is my favorite version of course, I believe you.
Yeah.
Somebody says this is really hard, and I'm like, I believe you. Of course,
Yeah.
this is really hard. Like, that's a fantastic way to validate someone's emotions. The personal story I'll give to this one is when I'm not writing grief books, I work as a florist 4 days a week in Chicago. And we've recently put together a funeral piece for someone whose brother recently died. And she calls the shop and she's overcome by grief because her brother died, but also because it was sudden, but also because his wife chose to have him cremated, which is against their religion. And so, and
Mm.
they have no access to his body. This woman has not given the rest of the family access to his body. And so she's like, we're holding a service without his body in our religious house of worship. It's against like everything we stand for.
Yeah.
And we need flowers that say all of that and also honor who he was. Like we need flowers that stand in for his body and also
Yeah.
honor our relationship to him. It's a big, tall order to fill. And she said over the phone, she said a lot of things over the phone, but one of the biggest things she kept repeating is like, I'm just so overcome. I'm just so overwhelmed. This just seems like so much to do all at once. And I just kept repeating, I was like, I believe you. I hear you. This is really hard. And just, it's not parroting. It's not like mimicking word for word back what she's saying to me, but acknowledging like, you are being heard, you are being received, but not only
Yeah.
that, you are being believed. Your experience is not just one crazy one that you're having inside of your head and everyone else is judging you for it. I can see how you got there. Or
Yeah.
your current state of being, your state of feeling
Yeah.
makes sense to me. And it stops any shame spiraling or judgment spiraling that grievers are so want to do, not because it's their fault, because we live in a
Yeah.
society that encourages
Yeah.
us to do that because it's the just get over it and why are you still, haven't moved on and all this. You need to find closure society. And it is just a beautiful counterweight that interrupts that story and says, someone agrees with how the griever's brain is working, what the grieving
Yeah.
person's heart is feeling. Oh my gosh, case reopened. There's new evidence. Maybe the grieving person isn't so crazy after all.
Shelby, it's just such a powerful example of how much words matter and how words make worlds.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and the um, and how simple it is. I mean, my sign off for the show for the last 7 years has been I see you, I hear you, I'm holding you in my heart. It's that validating. That's how I signed off my book as
Yes.
well. It's that I see you exactly as you are. I'm honoring, acknowledging, validating, I think is a really powerful word because we do so much inner invalidating. Most of us have an inner narrator, especially when we're in deep grief, who's a real asshole, pardon
Hmm.
my French, and is kind of a jerk to ourselves. And that I believe you, or that, of course, I say a lot to people, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Like if somebody
That's
says
one of my
something, I'll say, that
favorites.
makes a lot of sense, you know?
Hmm.
Um, to I get this question a lot, and I'm curious how you would answer it. To the person whose reason for not saying, "Of course, I believe you," etc., is, "I've never experienced that before. I don't understand, or that wouldn't be, they're thinking in my head, that wouldn't be my reaction to the situation. Why
Hmm.
is, of course, still the the most helpful thing we can offer.
Part of me wants to laugh and say, because your opinion's not the one that matters right
Yep.
now.
That
But
mic drop, that's a valid.
if you're supporting someone who's grieving, unless there's a possibility that harm could come to the grieving person or someone
Yes.
else, I'm like,
Yes.
don't share your opinion of how you would do it. They it's totally fine not to do that. You can keep it to yourself or tell somebody else who's not the person who's
Yeah.
grieving.
That's called
But I
being a
wrote,
grief thief, by the way, I say.
yeah,
You know?
that's
Yeah.
exactly right. And that's in Grief is a Sneaky Bitch. I
Yeah.
have actually a section about this in the, of course, it's like, if you don't agree with how the person is grieving, or if like that's not what you would do, I actually developed scripts for that, because like your approval is not required in order to comfort. You
Yes.
can comfort sans understanding or of approval. There's a section called remember your role and when conflict arises. I don't know what page it will be on for you, but for
No,
me
I
it's
know.
110 in the ARC paperback. But
Yes.
to say something like, that's not how I personally respond, but I can see how you got there. Or to say, I'm
Yes.
not in your shoes, so I will never have full context for what you're going through, but I follow your logic. Or the
Yeah.
last one is, everybody's grief is different, so I can't say I understand, but I do know that what you're feeling is a reasonable response to what you're facing. Like,
Yeah.
all of those are ways to say, not sure I totally like can position myself all of where you are,
Yeah.
but I'm beside you. But you don't have to endorse it. In other words, like, no
Yes.
one's asking you to legally sign off on their feelings or their actions.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you, as a grief coach and as the author of this book, um, to help them feel less crazy where they are.
Yeah.
And of coursing, or that makes sense, or I can see how you got there, or I see you, I hear you, I believe you, are
Yeah.
all ways to decrease the volume of you're
Yeah.
crazy that exists in a grieving person's head.
Yeah. It also shows that grieving person that you're a safe person to come to when they're having another, maybe more high stakes set of feelings or concerns, or they're wanting to take actions, because you've shown them that you can hold even the hard, uncomfortable feelings that that griever is having in the moment. So it's like you're building on your
Hmm.
trustworthiness.
Correct. That's a great point. And the underside, or the unspoken promise underneath, of course, is, I will not be a source of judgment to you.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
a gift to anyone in your life who's grieving anything.
Yeah. And I just want to make a note about, because I get this question a lot, and I've had to say this a lot in my work, is sometimes people get really scared with the of course when someone's telling you something that most grievers think or feel at some point in their grief, which is like, I don't know how I'm going to live without
Hmm.
my person. And
Hmm.
sometimes people get really scared because they are misinterpreting that as a bid, for them, the chance that they are gonna try to take their own lives, to die by
Hmm.
suicide, versus, I'm telling you, I just don't understand how a world works without my person. So
Yes.
can you talk about kind of like, how can people still take a deep breath, take a pause, and still, of course, their way into maybe even some of those harder admissions that a griever might make in their life?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I had written a bigger section on this in the book. Um, I think there is a section of like, when your griever expresses they don't want to be here anymore, or
There
they don't
is, and I've
understand
mentioned
how to
it
live
too,
in
but
the
I
world.
know.
I can't
Yeah,
remember where it is in the book. It's so
I
funny. I
know.
wrote it so long ago. But yes, I this passive suicidal ideation is
Yeah.
one thing that it's called. If you're looking for something to Google and
Mhm.
like actually look into this more, something that I often reflect back to grieving people is like, I can see how the pain of this moment feels unbearable.
Yeah.
And that's part of I'm getting into right now
Yes,
with
yes.
this, because right now is all about wrapping. Right now, Counterbalance is the story of It Will Be Like This Forever.
Forever. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And saying right now, in this moment, in this chapter, in this season, since your husband died, whatever the
Yeah.
time anchoring statement is you want to wrap around this, those are beautiful ways to, of course, and right now together. So to
Yes.
say, it makes sense to me that right now you can't see a way out, that's a validating and a time anchoring statement.
Yeah.
And then I think societally, we need to be better at asking people outright. Like,
Yes.
as a person who cares about you, I need to ask, do you have a
Yeah.
plan for ending your life?
Yes.
Or is this just a really hard season to be alive?
Yeah.
Like, to exist, to be
Yeah.
here. I know in this, the year of our Lord 2026, you may not have had anyone close to you die, but to be alive when fresh wars seem to be starting every day, when
Yeah.
politicians are making a-hole decisions that affect us all, when people's rights are being taken away, when people are being kidnapped off the streets, like,
Yeah.
there are a
Of
lot of
course,
us
you're
who are
having
not correct. Of
big
course.
effing
Of course,
feelings.
right now, it is hard to exist as a human in the world. And
Yeah.
so you can even say that language. You can say, do you have a plan to take your life? Or are you just feeling the weight of existing in the
Yeah.
world?
Yeah.
And that there's a huge difference between those two things. And a grieving person, more often than not, will not look at you and be like, why are you judging me right now? Or why are you
Right.
so afraid I'm going to take my life? They'll say something like, oh my God, you said the thing I'm thinking out loud. Of it is
Exactly.
simply hard to be alive. This is the I think Megan Devine describes it as the I'd be okay if I got run over by a bus tomorrow
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's not like I
Yep.
have no plan, I have no system, I have no final
Yeah.
note, I have none of that with regard to my life. But like if something else happened and took me out of pain, I'd be okay with that. Like
Yeah.
that's the flavor I think that a lot of grieving people, but kind of just a lot of society writ large is coexisting with right now. And so there I did it
Yeah.
again. I didn't even do that one on purpose, but right now but saying like, is this something you have intention for? Or
Yeah.
is this a season of your life where it simply feels very, very, very hard to
Yeah.
continue to be alive? And then to I'm here it, regardless of your answer, I'm here for all of it.
My hope is that this show feels like a safe space to be inside your grief. Remember, you don't need to do this alone. Your grief is valid and a normal response to loss. And the truth is, we live in a grief illiterate culture, which makes navigating this process more challenging than it needs to be. As a narrative therapy trained social worker and student of grief education and ritual, I'm here to walk alongside you. I'll offer you a place to feel seen and held and help you discover skills and practices for being with both grief and joy. Let me be your guide. If you're interested in learning more about individual grief support with me, you can visit lisakeefauver.com after the show today. That's Lisa, KeeFauver.com. Well, let's go there because I'm a big fan of right now. I've been writing and thinking about this a lot around I always add today,
Mhm.
to any question of how are you? It's like today. Well, I don't really like how are you in general, but today in this moment for now, I think, or right now, I use for now a lot is important. I want to
Mhm.
get there. And these three all work together, as you said so beautifully. What is I'm here? What does that look like? Maybe from the point of view of the griever, like how does a griever know you're the grief supporter who's embodying I'm here? Because it's not just saying the words I'm here. In
Mhm.
fact, one of the harmful things I think most of us have experienced in our life as grievers is somebody who said, I'm here for you, and then wasn't, in fact,
And then vanish. Yeah.
here for you.
Yes.
So, can you talk about what I'm here looks like in an embodied practice? I mean, the phrases too, yes, but also what does I'm here offer? What story does it soothe? What does it look like? How do we practice I'm here?
Yeah. This was a tricky one to write because sometimes I even get the ick about the phrase I'm here. I'm like, oh, you
Yeah.
don't really mean that. Because I
Yeah.
can tell. Because I can tell
Yeah.
underneath their text message or their email or their
Yeah.
hand on the shoulder. I'm like, oh, I can tell you're gonna disappear in a couple
Yeah.
weeks. Um, but I'm here as it's intended and as it's written in the book is the counterweight to I'm alone,
Yeah.
which feels very obvious. But what I really want to point out and what I write about in the book is what I don't want comforters to say is you're not alone.
I know.
You are never invalidating a grieving person's lived reality. So
Yeah.
I'm crazy. You're not crazy. I'm alone. You're not alone. It'll
Yeah.
always be like this forever. It won't be like this forever. You can try for more kids. You can date and find love
Yeah.
again. Whatever.
Oh,
What you don't want to do is contradict like the real experience that a grieving person is having, whether it's their real experience or whether it's a story they're telling themselves in their heads.
Yeah.
Those are the same thing to me as a person who interacts with grieving people. So what you never want to say is you're not alone. But to Lisa's point and to my point, you also don't want to say I'm here and then never be here again.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So the purpose of I'm here and the goal of it is to exist and show up continually over time, just ongoing contact. And you and your grieving person can co-decide what that means for you. If you're like a practitioner or a medical provider, you may only see a grieving person like once or twice a year. But to
Yeah.
say in your interaction, this is my favorite alternate way to say I'm here. I haven't forgotten that you're grieving. Is there
Yeah.
anything that's changed since you came in for your last visit? I'm here. I haven't
I love
forgotten.
that.
It's one of my all-time favorite things. For people who are friends and family of grievers, you can get a little closer. You can do this more often. You can send a picture of I was just on another interview this morning that said, send a picture of a cardinal and say, your child's here with me in the yard this morning, if that's something your grieving person
Yes.
believes. Thinking of you today. Or my best friend Tammy was obsessed with corgis. And so anytime someone sends me a picture of a corgi, they're like, hi, spotted a blessing. Tammy's here. And like no other how are you? What are you feeling? Let's get into the depths of your emotions. It's none of that.
Yeah.
It's just like, I haven't forgotten that Tammy died. And here is something from her. Without a photo, you could certainly say, no need to respond. Just thinking of you and insert loss today. Or at a company party where someone just announced that they're engaged or going on maternity leave. Hey, haven't forgotten that you went through a divorce this time last year. How are you
Yeah.
feeling about that today? Or, hey, haven't forgotten that you just miscarried 3 weeks ago, as this coworker just announced their pregnancy. Why don't
Yes.
we grab a punch in the break room or something? And just the best way you can say I'm here is to let your grieving person know that you have not forgotten that they are a
Yeah.
grieving person, that that is not just a thing that happened to them one time back there, but that it is something that will impact and is impacting them for the rest of their lives. Those are all ways to say I'm here. And alternatives to that beyond like I haven't forgotten that you're grieving, which is like my all-time favorite.
Yeah.
Um, are are things like your grief can't scare me away. Like there's nothing you can do to lose me. That's one of
Yeah.
my favorites, especially for a very, very close relationship like a spouse or a parent of a child, especially if you are grieving and also comforting someone who is grieving, which is the
Yes.
case for
Yeah.
so many of us as grievers, is to say something like, I am dealing with my own grief, but your grief cannot frighten me away either. Like I will not force
Yeah.
either of us to grieve alone is a wonderful thing to say. I'm looking for this page in my book.
Yeah.
Um, oh, here's another one. I'm right beside you. I don't have words for this, but I care about being here in
Yeah.
this moment with you. Another one is, again, if you're a therapist, medical practitioner, someone who has a limited amount of time with a griever, I'll stay for as long as I can, is
Yeah.
another way to say, I'm here. And then when issuing invitations, there's no pressure to come to the concert or the restaurant reservation, whatever it is, but I wanted to make sure you got an invitation. Like
That's my
that's a
favorite.
wonderful
Yeah.
way to say
Yeah.
I'm here. And then I put in ways to do long distance too, because I'm here can be physical. Like I'm physically with you. I invited you to this thing. We're going to dinner. We're going to take a walk, whatever. But to say you and your grief matter to me. You've lost so much. You will not lose me. Like these are all different ways. There's like 2 pages worth of alternates
Yes.
to I'm
No,
here.
the book offers
And they're
so many
so
great
helpful.
practical. Yeah. Yeah. Shelby, I love all of that so much. Um, Again, both as somebody who's been on the receiving end of it or the opposite of it, I would
Hmm.
say, and who does professionally and personally show up in that way. I want to highlight a couple of the things that you say, amplify what's really important. What you're talking about there is really about the quality of the interaction, not the quantity,
Hmm.
or that it has to be a long, or that they have to, I'm here and now you can unfold everything you were ever thinking in this
Yeah.
moment. Like,
Who has time for that right
who has
now?
time for that right now? And that may not be what that person wants, but just that
Right.
touchstone, and that it can take, um, naming the person, thinking about the person, or the type of loss, recognizing that a holiday, an announcement, an anniversary might have them being in touch with their grief in a way, and just saying, I acknowledge, again, back to the I see you. Of course, your feelings, of course, it makes sense that you might be feeling sad at this time of year.
Hmm.
I think is so important, that quality, and the quality of the interaction. And also, oh, so important, that sentence you said, "And you don't owe me a response."
Hmm.
There's so much exhaustion and burden on the griever to feel like they have to. I mean, I grew up having to write thank you notes for everything, which I love, and my daughter does it
Me
too.
too.
But there
Yep.
is this sort of pressure that like it's so exhausting to then thank everybody. And so I love this being proactive. I do it when I write letters because I also believe in the power of snail mail. So I send cards all the time, random times a year to my grieving friends. And do not write me a thank you note for this card or this little gift. If I send a text, every text ends with, I don't expect a response.
Hmm. I joke that the I'm here section is specifically for men and or anyone who doesn't think they have a very high like emotional intelligence. They're like, I'm not a
Yes.
therapist. I don't know the fluffy words. I'm not a feelings person. If you fall under that category, or a lot of our
Yeah.
society trains men to not be good at that. But to say, I'm here, or I haven't forgotten, or we're all going to go play tennis today, just wanted to make sure you
Yeah.
got an invitation, and to persistently do that over long periods of time, it
Yeah.
doesn't require a lot of depth. It just requires a lot of consistency.
Yeah.
And that does not like need you to have, you are not required to have like an advanced degree in grief psychology to do
Exactly.
that. You just
Yeah.
announce your presence over and over and over again in a way that's like, no need to respond, very low pressure. Haven't forgotten that you're grieving.
Yeah.
You've lost so much, you will not lose me. I'm going to keep showing up whether you like it or
Yeah.
not. You kind of become a stubborn comforter
Yes.
in their
Yeah.
life, and demonstrate that in a world where everyone else has drifted away or fallen away, you will not lose me. I will not
Yeah.
be another relationship that you need to grieve while you are also already grieving this huge loss. That's a big thing to give to somebody who's grieving.
It's kind of everything. It's really
Hmm.
profoundly important. And it's, it's so helpful, I think, to the folks who'll be reading this book in that it is these, what I would use in air quotes, a low lift. We're not
Yeah.
asking that much of you, but this little and consistent, I think is your point, effort has such a big impact. It's like the little effort to the big impact. My grief support motto, listeners have heard before, is show up, shut up, and listen, and keep showing up. It's the
Hmm.
keep showing up part, I think that matters so much to all of us. So we know we say, of course, this helps us validate you're not crazy. This makes sense to me that you're feeling this. I'm validating you. You're saying I'm here, which means even though I hear that you feel alone, and I'm going to show you by my repetition, by my consistency, by my effort that I'm here to see it, hold it, be with you.
Hmm.
And then the right now part. I use the phrase for now, but talk about the right now part. What story is that tamping down? And what does that look like? And if somebody's listening right now and their best friend's mom just died, or their colleague just experienced the death of their child, what does right now look like in action as a grief
Yeah.
supporter?
This one's my favorite. I think
Yeah.
everyone has a phrase that they lean
Yeah.
on a lot, and this is mine. Um, and it came out because in grief coaching work, I noticed over and over and over again, a lot of the people I was working with just kept um, telling this story of it's going to be like this forever. I'm going to feel stuck forever. I actually did a poll of 100 grievers 3 or 4 years ago, asking them to describe their grief. And I was expecting to get responses like, I feel sad. I feel lonely. I feel misunderstood. I feel exhausted. That's like or overwhelmed.
Yeah.
That's a big one. But the number one response was stuck. I feel stuck in my grief. I don't know how to move
Mm.
forward. I don't know how to live with it. I don't know how to build or rebuild a life after that. And so as I have been speaking to grievers and writing books like this and creating materials through the years, I'm like, what is it that's keeping people stuck? And it's this story that my life, exactly how it is right now, because my loss is permanent, is exactly how it's going to be forever.
Yeah.
And so the story of right now, I call it in the book the covert contextualizer. It like
Yes.
sneaks in the back door of a griever's experience. And it doesn't say, it won't be like this forever, or you'll marry again, or you still have your dad, or like all these other things and forcing you to be grateful. It like just tacks on to the end of sentences or things that the griever is already saying, and just opens up like 1% of breathing room that things could possibly change in the future without you
Yeah.
saying that. Because probably logically, a grieving person knows on some level
Yeah.
that life won't be this bad forever. But if you say that
Yeah.
directly, it sounds like you're trying to pull them up out of the mud when they're like, I'm
Yeah.
not interested in being pulled out of the
You need
mud.
to
And
just come
also,
sit in the mud with me right
correct.
now. Yeah.
And so to say to your best friend whose mom just died is like, right now, I bet everything you see is reminders that your mom's not here. Or right now, my mom died from breast cancer. And so every
Yeah.
October, I just have a miserable time because all these
Yep.
breast cancer ads everywhere. For my wife to be like, right now, it sucks to be in a world in October.
Yeah.
And so we're just like, right now, it sucks to be alive in October because everywhere is pink and reminders of fundraising and blah, 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 and protect the Tatas and all this crap. And I'm just like, "Ugh, right now, it's just so miserable. But it's such a great reminder that it's just a season. Or for a coworker um, who's also experiencing a loss to say, right now, and this is like a right now and of course together, but right now, it's okay if work feels harder than usual.
Yeah.
Or in this season, I would be happy to take something off of your
Yeah.
plate. Or um, for now, it's okay if focus feels elusive. Or for now, it's okay if you don't feel like speaking to the board.
Yeah.
Some like things like that. And to just frame it as it won't be like this forever without actually saying that is
Yes.
such a powerful thing to do for anyone who's grieving. And the example that I gave in the book was of a coaching session in Life After Loss Academy, where once a week, all of the students and I get together and we ask questions and talk about our losses and honor milestones together. And there was a woman in there whose mom died and she just couldn't sleep. She kept having nightmares about the way her mother died and finding her body and um, being the sole executor of like all the will and the financial stuff. She
Yeah.
was like, I am overloaded and I am lucky if I get like 3 to 4 hours of sleep every night. And she's like, food doesn't taste like anything. My time at work is over. And so now I have to go back to work. She's just like overwhelmed, 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 overwhelmed. Everything was stacking up. And so I I told her um, that it sounds like everything is important in this season, and everything also has to come through you in order to be dealt with. It seems like you don't have the time or space to take a break, and that's really hard. What if you could see this moment in your life as something that's only happening right now? And I went on to say, like, I know your dad's death is permanent. Like, I know your mom's death is permanent. Um, I know that there are things about this loss that cannot change. But what if you saw that or saw this moment as exactly that, a moment?
Yeah.
And then there were other people who like popped into the chat who were like, right now, I can't think of ever getting another job. Or
Yeah.
right now, I'll probably never adopt another cat again after the death of a pet.
Yeah.
Or right now, I can't see myself ever getting pregnant or having more children. Or right now, I'm just trying to get through my wedding. Or right
Yeah.
now, I'm just trying to. And so all these other grief supporters were like chiming into the chat. It felt like a miracle. It was so
Yeah.
beautiful. But for
Wow.
everybody to say, right now, this is the thing I'm suffering with.
Yeah.
And then to also frame it as a season or a temporary state. And it was just like you could feel, I get chills talking about this, but it's also like
Yeah.
you could feel the relief of everyone in the room just getting a little lighter, a little lighter, a little lighter. Cause the dread of, I've got all this shit and it just keeps piling up and I don't know how it will ever end
Yeah.
into right now. Right now, I've got all this shit and it just keeps piling up and it feels like it will never end. It's just one tiny modification, but it changes the whole story.
Yeah.
Changes the whole story.
It so does. I appreciate you giving us those specific examples and the kind of way we might show up with this language that couples so beautifully, of course, with of course, and
Hmm.
I'm here. I think right now or for now is such a powerful example of the way words make worlds and the way that it is we can be invitational versus coercive
Ooh.
or discounting because
Mhm.
so much of, you're not alone or it's not gonna last forever, any of those things is really coercive, um, and kind of trying to wrestle people away from their own lived truth in the moment.
Mhm.
But this right now, it's like this sweet little invitation that might open the door because strong emotions, as I said before, can be real liars, and so they kind of trick us into feeling, not being able to see because we kind of get into our stressor state, right? And this part of our brain, the sort of logical part of our brain goes completely offline, so we're sort of coming from our survival place.
Mhm.
And just by saying right now or for now, it's like planting a little seed for the griever.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
maybe slowly inviting them out of their survival state so that they might drop into their own inner knowing, which is this is this season or this day, and I have no freaking clue what life is going to be like a year from now. And I still can't imagine it, nor do we need to.
Hmm.
And I can open myself up to the possibility
Yeah.
that it won't always feel this hard.
Yes. And this just occurred to me, but what I love that it's not is just take it one day at a time. Just
Oh,
take it 1 minute at a time. I know some people, some grievers absolutely love that phrase, but I just want to throttle anyone who says that
yeah.
because I'm like, how else would I take it? How
Yeah.
else can I possibly continue to exist other than 1 moment at a time, one breath at a time, one day at a
Yeah.
time? I'm just like, I'm so over take things one day at a time. And that might be an unpopular
Yeah.
opinion, but to say instead of, you know, it's hard to survive this right now, or it's
Yeah.
hard to be human right now, or it's hard to have
Yeah.
this loss right now, or it's hard that this is true right now, or in this season for the time being. It just feels so different to me than it doesn't feel prescriptive. Just take
Yes.
it one day at a time. Is somebody pointing their finger at you
Yes.
and saying,
It's
here's what to do?
coercive. Yeah. It can be
Yeah.
kind of coercive or judgmental or sort of dragging people. Um, yeah, it's so I mean, my whole work and yours too, I feel this is the kind of the tone of your book is very invitational because the truth is we can be a witness to this person's experience, but we are not inside of their skin. We are not inside of their
Hmm.
heart and their mind and their sleepless body and their exhausted body, and the particularities of their financial or social support systems. And so all we can do is invite them to see the world as um, not being so scary, that we are there, that we are not alone. And then I would say any of these ideas, especially if you're a griever who's showing up as a grief supporter, like you've been on a road where they've been, not their road, but a road.
Hmm.
If they ask, how do I do it? Okay, well, then you might say, here are some, that's when you might open the door to say, if and when you're ready, here's something that worked for me. It may
Hmm.
not work for you. So when people kind of give me then you can if somebody opens the door specifically to that clue of like, how do I? What would it look like? I don't know. Then if you have something to offer, it can be useful. Similar to what you don't like, the thing that I offer but again, I only offer it when somebody says sort of like, okay, but what does this look like? How do I help me do this?
Hmm.
Is David White's Start Close In, the
Yeah.
poet David White. And I think that's just a reminder in a way to the right now. It's another way to say right now. Like
Hmm.
right now in your overwhelm, what is going to make it suck less?
Yeah.
That's always why
Yes.
I'm always joking. Like the goal is not to feel good. Oftentimes the goal is just for things to suck less.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite tips from your book, because it reminds me of a conversation I had with a client once who was grieving, and I said, she's like, "I just want to feel better." I was like, "What if the goal wasn't better? What if the goal was just neutral? What if we just felt less
Yes.
bad?" And
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh," she's like, "I'm like, there's a place between terrible
Yes.
and better, and we can try and set up shop there first
When
as
it
like a
feels more
stepping
reasonable
stone."
or accessible.
Right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot, yeah, it feels a lot easier or yeah, more accessible to get to than like, "How do I feel great?" I'm like, "I don't think you're gonna feel great for a long time. Sorry to burst your bubble, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna feel great or better, for a while." And that's also of course, why
Yeah.
would you?
Yeah.
Um, but to change the goal, change the destination for now
Yeah.
to neutral or decent or even bored. I'm like, "What if
Yes.
bored was a goal?" Instead of terrible, that totally changes where you think you're going and where you're trying to get to in grief.
Yeah, I often say to people, there's a wide expanse between absolute shit and absolute bliss.
Yes.
And that is the space that we're living in, and we're always moving back and forth through those things. And I think again that words making worlds just gives people permission because so much of our suffering is I have this story that I should feel X
Mhm.
by now,
Yep.
and I don't. And so to kind of do that reframing of like, yeah, right now you feel like absolute shit. Makes
Yep.
sense. I'm here. Of course, I'm here.
Exactly.
Of course,
Exactly.
I'm here. Shelby, I could talk to you for days and days. This has been such an
Ditto.
valuable conversation. I say this with my genuine whole heart. I felt and feel so honored that I got to be an early reader of your book. And I said to several of our peers, because we're in this space together, I really think Shelby wrote the book on grief support. It's just so absolutely gorgeous. So if you're watching us on YouTube, which you can do at Lisa Keefauver MSW, Grief is a Sneaky Bitch. And I'll post this on my socials too, although I'm trying to stay off them a little bit these days, but I'm going to post it because it's so gorgeous. Of course, I'm here right now. 3 actually helpful things to say to someone grieving by the extraordinary Shelby Forsythia. Thank you so much for joining me on Grief is a Sneaky Bitch podcast.
I'm so glad to be here. And the thing I want to leave everyone with is the entire reason this book exists. And to Lisa's point, to our firm belief, is that words really do create worlds. And that you don't need to know how to make a casserole. You don't need to have the money to send a gift card to buy groceries. Even just offering somebody your words is enough of a way to comfort them when you're grieving. They are free, they are portable, they can go long distance or in person. But like, this is the best way to support somebody who is grieving, is just with your language. Yeah.
So beautiful. So beautiful. All right, everybody. You heard it here. Shelby offered you the tools that you need. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Grief is a Sneaky Bitch podcast. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, my friends, for spending this time with us. I hope you're walking away feeling more empowered than ever to show up for others and for yourself in a more meaningful way. Make sure to visit shelbyforsythia.com. That's ShelbyForsythia.com to get a copy of her amazing new book. And if you're listening before March 31st, secure your pre-order today. Now, hosting this show means the world to me. I hope you know that by now. And although I don't get to interact with you, the listener, very often, I hope it means something to you too. I hope you learn something each time, you feel seen and acknowledged in your own grief. And today, more than ever, maybe walk away feeling more equipped to show up for someone grieving the death of their loved one. If you loved this episode, we'd so appreciate it if you took just a few minutes to head to the Grief is a Sneaky Bitch show page on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating, and then write a review about what the show in particular means to you. Until next time, my friends, I want you to know truly that I see you, I hear you, and I'm holding you in my heart.